The moment my mother realized she had made the biggest mistake of her life was the day she stood on my front porch in the pouring rain, clutching a worn-out suitcase and crying so hard she could barely speak. The same mother who had once looked me in the eyes and told me that her new husband came first. The same woman who watched me pack my bags at 17 years old and didn't stop me. The same woman who chose him over her own child. And when she begged me to let her stay, I had a decision to make. Should I help the woman who abandoned me, or should I give her exactly what she gave me all those years ago? Tell me honestly, what would you have done? To understand why that moment mattered so much, I have to go back nearly 15 years. Back when my life was simple, back when I still believed my mother would always protect me no matter what happened. My father died when I was 10 years old. One day he was there, driving me to school and teaching me how to ride a bike, and the next day he was gone after a sudden heart attack. It shattered both of us. For years it was just me and my mom against the world. We lived in a small house, struggled financially, and somehow made it work. We weren't rich, but we were close. At least I thought we were. Everything changed when I was 16 and my mother met Greg. At first, he seemed charming. He brought flowers. He made her laugh. He talked about building a future together. My mom looked happier than she had in years, and I genuinely wanted that for her. I tried to be supportive. I welcomed him into our lives because I thought he made her happy. But the longer he stayed around, the more cracks started to show. Greg had this way of making little comments that seemed harmless on the surface but felt cruel underneath. He would criticize my clothes. He would complain if I left a dish in the sink. He would make jokes about how teenagers were lazy and entitled while staring directly at me. Every time I tried to tell my mother, she brushed it off. "He's just adjusting," she'd say. "You're being too sensitive." "He doesn't mean it like that." The problem was that he absolutely meant it like that. Within a year, Greg had practically moved into our house. Suddenly everything belonged to him. His rules, his schedule, his opinions. If he wanted silence, I had to be quiet. If he wanted the television, I couldn't use it. If he wanted my mother all to himself, she disappeared into their bedroom and ignored me for hours. I started feeling like a guest in my own home. One night during dinner, Greg announced that I needed to start paying rent after I turned 18. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. My mother sat there silently while he explained how adults needed to contribute and how I couldn't expect free handouts forever. I looked at her and waited for her to defend me. She didn't. That was the first time I realized something fundamental had changed between us. Over the next year, things got worse. Greg seemed determined to push me out of the house. Every little mistake became evidence that I was irresponsible. Every disagreement became proof that I was disrespectful. Then came the argument that changed everything. I had been accepted into a university 3 hours away. It was my dream school. I worked incredibly hard to get in. Instead of celebrating, Greg immediately started complaining about the costs. "We shouldn't be wasting money on this," he said. I reminded him it wasn't his money. That was a mistake. He exploded. The argument escalated until he shouted that if I didn't like living under his rules, I could leave. I turned to my mother. I expected her to stop him. I expected her to tell him this was still my home. Instead, she looked away. Then she said the words I will never forget. "Maybe it would be better if you moved out." I remember feeling physically sick. I remember staring at her because I genuinely thought I had misheard her. But she repeated it. She chose him. Just like that. After everything we'd been through together. After every sacrifice. After every promise. She chose him. I packed my belongings that weekend. Neither of them stopped me. Not once. I moved into a tiny apartment near my university. The place was awful. The plumbing barely worked. The heating failed constantly. I survived on instant noodles and part-time jobs. There were nights when I cried myself to sleep because I felt completely alone. My mother called occasionally. Not to apologize. Not to ask how I was doing. Mostly to tell me about her life with Greg. Eventually, I stopped answering. Years passed. I graduated. I got a decent job. Then a better one. I worked harder than anyone around me because failure wasn't an option. I had nobody to fall back on, nobody coming to save me. While my friends spent weekends relaxing, I worked overtime. While other people took vacations, I invested. Little by little, my life improved. I bought a small condo. Then I started my own business. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, failures, and moments when I thought everything would collapse, but somehow I kept going. By my early 30s, I was doing better than I ever imagined. And throughout all those years, my relationship with my mother remained distant. We exchanged holiday messages, occasional birthday texts. Nothing more. She never apologized. Not once. As far as she was concerned, the past was simply the past. Then something interesting happened. Mutual relatives started telling me things. Apparently, Greg wasn't the wonderful husband she thought he was. He controlled finances. He isolated her from friends. He constantly criticized her. The same behavior he had shown me years earlier was now directed at her. I wish I could say I felt sympathy. At the time, I mostly felt numb. After all, she had ignored every warning I gave her. She had watched him treat me badly and defended him anyway. Then came the engagement point of this story, and honestly, I want to know what you would have done. Imagine spending years rebuilding your life after being rejected by your own parent. Imagine finally finding success, stability, and peace. Then imagine discovering that the person who hurt you is suffering because of the very choices they made. Would you help them? Would you forgive them? Or would you walk away? Before I tell you what happened next, think about it and imagine yourself in my position, because I genuinely struggled with what came next. A few months later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. It was my mother. She sounded different, smaller somehow, fragile. She asked if we could meet. I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. When I arrived at the restaurant, I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted, older than her age, defeated. After a few minutes of awkward conversation, she finally admitted the truth. Greg had drained their savings. He had accumulated debt. He had been hiding financial problems for years. And recently, he had started seeing another woman. The marriage she sacrificed everything for was collapsing. I sat there quietly while she cried. Part of me felt sorry for her. Another part remembered every lonely night in that freezing apartment. Every birthday she missed. Every phone call she never made. Every opportunity she had to choose me and didn't. Then she asked if she could borrow money. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. After years of barely speaking to me, after years of acting like nothing happened, her first serious request was money. I told her no. Her face fell immediately. For the first time, she seemed shocked that actions had consequences. She left in tears. For weeks afterward, I felt conflicted. People often imagine revenge something satisfying. But real life is messier. I wasn't happy. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. Then 6 months later came the moment I described at the beginning. A stormy evening. A knock at my door. My mother standing there with a suitcase. Greg had finally left her. Not only that, but he had left her with massive debt and nowhere to go. The house was being repossessed. Most of her friends had disappeared. She had nobody. And suddenly, she remembered she had a child. Me. She begged me to let her stay. I looked at her standing there and felt every emotion imaginable. Pain, anger, sadness, guilt, memories, everything at once. She kept apologizing, over and over. For the first time in 15 years, she admitted she had been wrong. For the first time, she acknowledged that she chose Greg over me. For the first time, she accepted responsibility. And that's what made the decision so difficult. If she had shown up demanding help, I would have slammed the door. But she showed up broken. Genuinely broken. I invited her inside. Not because she deserved it. Because I needed closure. For hours we talked. Really talked. She admitted she had been afraid of being alone after my father's death. She admitted Greg manipulated her. She admitted she ignored obvious warning signs because she desperately wanted the relationship to work. Most importantly, she admitted none of that excused what she did to me. That night she slept in my guest room. The same thing she denied me years ago. Over the next several months, she slowly rebuilt her life. I didn't give her money. I didn't magically solve her problems. Instead, I helped her create a budget. I helped her find work. I helped her get legal advice. She had to earn her way back. And surprisingly, she did. For the first time in my adult life, I saw genuine effort from her. Not excuses. Not denial. Effort. One evening, nearly a year after she moved in, she handed me a letter. Inside was a detailed apology. Page after page acknowledging everything she had done. Every moment she failed me. Every choice she regretted. I must have read it 20 times. It didn't erase the past. Nothing ever could. But it mattered. A lot. Eventually, she moved into her own apartment. Small but comfortable. Stable. Independent. Our relationship wasn't magically perfect afterward. That's not how life works. Trust takes years to rebuild. Some wounds never disappear completely. But we found something we hadn't had in a very long time. Honesty. A few years later, she attended one of my company's anniversary celebrations. As she watched me give a speech, I noticed tears in her eyes. Afterwards, she hugged me and said something I'll never forget. She said, "You became the person I should have been." For a moment, neither of us spoke, because we both knew exactly what she meant. Greg eventually vanished from our lives completely. Last I heard, he repeated the same pattern with someone else. Manipulative people rarely change. They simply find new victims. As for my mother, she spent years trying to make amends, not because she expected forgiveness, but because she knew she had to earn it. And surprisingly, over time she did. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough. Looking back now, I think the biggest lesson from this whole experience is that love without accountability isn't really love. Parents make mistakes. Children make mistakes. Everyone does. But relationships only survive when people are willing to own those mistakes and face the consequences. My mother chose her new husband over me, and it cost her almost everything. Years later, when she finally understood what that decision had done, she spent the rest of her life trying to make it right. Whether she fully succeeded is something I'll probably spend years thinking about. If you made it this far, let me know what you think. Would you have let her stay? Would you have forgiven her after everything she did? Like this video if you were on my side, subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I read as many comments as I can, and I'm always interested to hear different perspectives. Thanks for listening to my story, and I'll see you all in the next story.